The council chamber fell silent as the holographic display flickered to life. Ambassador Zixnar of the Veloran Collective had called this emergency session, and now 12 different species from across the galaxy watched with growing unease. The images before them showed a world they had been observing for decades, a small blue planet called Earth. "What you are about to see," Zixnar began, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence, "will change everything we thought we knew about primitive species." The recording started. It showed a battlefield unlike anything the gathered aliens had witnessed before. 2 groups of humans were fighting each other, which was not unusual. Many species fought among themselves before achieving space travel, but what happened next made several ambassadors gasp in horror. A human soldier ran through enemy fire to reach another wounded soldier. Weapons blazed around him. The ground exploded near his feet, yet he kept running. He reached his fallen comrade, lifted the larger man onto his shoulders, and began carrying him back toward safety. Then the unthinkable happened. A blast struck nearby, throwing debris everywhere. The rescuing soldier was hit badly. He was dying. Everyone watching could see that. But instead of falling, instead of giving up, the wounded soldier used his last strength to throw his comrade behind cover. He used his own body as a shield against the next explosion. He died so that the other might live. "This is not an isolated incident," Zixnar continued. "We have documented thousands of similar events. Humans regularly sacrifice themselves for each other, not just for family members, which would make biological sense. They die for strangers. They die for people they have never met." Ambassador Krelax of the Mantari Empire leaned forward, his insect-like mandibles clicking nervously. "Surely this is an error in your recordings. No species would waste resources protecting unrelated individuals. It goes against all natural laws of survival." "That is what we believed as well," Zixnar replied. "But we have been studying humans for 100 of their years now. This behavior is constant. It appears in every human culture, every nation, every period of their history." The hologram shifted to show another scene. This time it was a disaster of some kind. A building had collapsed and humans were trapped inside. The recording showed other humans rushing toward the danger, not away from it. They dug through the rubble with their bare hands. Their fingers bled. Their muscles failed, but they kept digging. One human found a small child trapped under a massive beam. The beam was too heavy to lift, and the structure above was about to collapse completely. Any logical being would have retreated to safety. Instead, the human lay down and used his body to support the falling debris while others pulled the child free. The structure crushed him moments later. "They call these individuals heroes," Zixnar explained. "But here is what truly disturbed our researchers. Humans do not consider such sacrifice unusual. They expect it of themselves. They teach their young that giving one's life for others is the highest form of honor." The chamber erupted in confused chatter. Species that had never agreed on anything were now united in their bewilderment. Ambassador Tzora of the Velith Harmony raised her delicate hand for silence. Her people were known for their peaceful nature, but even she seemed disturbed. "Among my kind, we sacrifice resources for the good of the collective, but never ourselves. Our lives are too valuable to waste. How can these humans achieve anything if they keep dying for each other?" "That is the mystery," Zixnar admitted. "By all logical calculations, humans should have destroyed themselves long ago. Their willingness to die should have made them extinct. Instead, it has made them stronger." He changed the display again. Now it showed human history across thousands of years. Battles, disasters, plagues, and famines played out in rapid succession. And in every crisis, there were humans throwing themselves into danger to save others. "We have run simulations," Zixnar said. "In every model where we removed this sacrificial behavior, human civilization collapsed within a few generations. It seems that their willingness to die for each other is precisely what keeps them alive as a species." General Voxter of the Korath Dominion snorted through his breathing tubes. The Korath were a warrior species, and they prided themselves on their strength and conquest. These humans sound weak, emotional. They would be easy to conquer. That is what the Zethral thought, Zixnar replied quietly. The chamber went completely silent. The Zethral were a cautionary tale among space-faring civilizations. 50 years ago, they had been a major power. Then they had simply vanished. No one knew why. You have information about the Zethral disappearance? Ambassador Krellex asked. We have footage, Zixnar said. The Zethral kept very detailed records of their attempted conquest of Earth. Those records were recovered from their abandoned colonies. The hologram changed once more. This time it showed a Zethral invasion force landing on Earth. The aliens were massive creatures, twice the size of humans, with armored scales and weapons that could reduce buildings to ash. They landed in a major human city and began their assault. At first, it went exactly as the Zethral had planned. Humans died by the thousands. Their primitive weapons did little against Zethral armor. The aliens advanced through the city, certain of victory. Then the humans began to organize. Not their military, which was still responding. The ordinary humans, the civilians. They formed chains of people to help others escape. Parents shielded children with their bodies. Young humans guided the elderly to safety before thinking of themselves. And some humans, with no training and no real hope of survival, picked up whatever weapons they could find and charged at the invaders. The Zethral commanders reported these attacks as suicidal and pointless, Zixnar narrated. And from a tactical perspective, they were correct. These humans could not win, but they were not trying to win. They were trying to buy time. The footage showed human after human throwing themselves at the Zethral forces. Each one died quickly, but each death slowed the advance by precious seconds, and those seconds added up. The Zethral were confused, Zixnar continued. They could not understand why these beings kept attacking when they had no chance of victory. Their confusion gave the human military time to arrive. Now the hologram showed human soldiers engaging the Zethral. The battle was fierce and terrible. Human casualties were enormous. But again and again, the footage showed the same pattern. Soldiers diving on explosives to save their comrades. Pilots crashing their damaged aircraft into enemy positions. Commanders staying behind to cover their troops' retreat. The Zethral had never encountered anything like this, Zixnar said. In their culture, retreat was logical when facing certain death. Self-preservation was the highest priority. They could not predict human behavior because humans did not behave logically. The recording showed the Zethral forces finally retreating to their ships. They had suffered losses they never expected. And worse, they had failed to break human resistance. The humans who survived were already helping the wounded, already rebuilding, already preparing for the next attack. The Zethral returned to their homeworld to regroup, Zixnar said. But word of what had happened spread. Other Zethral colonies began to question their leaders. How could they lose to such a primitive species? The Zethral Empire began to fracture from within. Their colonies declared independence. Civil war broke out. The final images showed the Zethral homeworld burning, not from human attack, but from internal conflict. The empire that had terrorized dozens of systems had destroyed itself because they could not handle one small planet that refused to surrender. The humans never knew what happened to the Zethral, Zixnar concluded. They simply disappeared from human skis, and the humans went back to their lives. They did not realize they had destroyed an empire simply by refusing to give up. The council chamber was absolutely quiet now. Every ambassador was thinking the same thing. What would happen if the humans reached space? What would happen if they joined the galactic community? General Voxter spoke first, his earlier arrogance completely gone. These humans are not weak. They are terrifying. Yes, Zixnar agreed. And that is why I called this emergency session. Our latest observations show that humans are on the verge of developing faster-than-light travel. Within 10 of their years, they will reach the stars. We must decide what to do about them. The debate that followed would change galactic history forever. The Council debated for 17 standard days. Representatives from all 12 species argued, plotted, and worried about the human problem. 3 main camps emerged, each with their own solution. General Voxter and the Korath wanted to strike first. We must destroy them before they become a threat, he insisted. Better to eliminate them now while they are still confined to one world. But Ambassador Tzora and the Velith reminded everyone of what happened to the Zethral. You saw the recordings. Direct attack against humans only makes them fight harder. We would lose thousands of warriors and the humans would still survive. Their world is difficult to invade, surrounded by radiation belts and orbiting debris. We would suffer tremendous losses. The third camp, led by Ambassador Zixnar himself, proposed something unprecedented. We should invite them to join us, make them our allies rather than our enemies. This suggestion caused the greatest uproar of all. Many species considered humans too primitive, too violent, too unpredictable to join the Galactic Assembly. Humans still fought among themselves. They still destroyed their own environment. They still made war for foolish reasons like territory and resources. They are chaos incarnate, Ambassador Krelax argued. Allowing them into our assembly would destabilize everything we have built. And yet, Zixnar replied calmly, they are coming regardless of what we decide. The question is not whether humans will join the galactic community. The question is whether we want them as friends or enemies. While the debate continued, Earth remained unaware of the attention it had attracted. Humans went about their daily lives, working and loving and fighting just as they always had. They did not know that their every action was being watched and analyzed by alien minds trying to understand them. Dr. Sarah Chen was one of the humans being closely observed, though she never knew it. She was a researcher at the Global Space Agency, and she was very close to solving the problem of faster-than-light travel. The aliens had identified her as one of the key figures in human advancement. What interested the watching aliens most was how Dr. Chen behaved outside her laboratory. They watched her work 18-hour days on her research. They watched her skip meals and sleep to check her calculations. They watched her refuse offers from wealthy corporations who wanted to buy her work for weapons development. I am not building this so humans can kill each other faster, she told one persistent businessman. I am building this so we can reach the stars, all of us, together. The Korath observers could not understand her reasoning. She could be wealthy beyond measure, one reported to General Voxter. She could have power and influence. Why does she refuse? Because humans are insane, Voxter replied. This is further proof that they are dangerous. But Ambassador Tzora saw something different. She watched Dr. Chen donate money to students who could not afford education. She watched her mentor young scientists who were struggling. She watched her refuse to take credit for work her team had done together. She is building something larger than herself, Tzora observed. She sacrifices her own advancement for the advancement of her species. This is what the soldier did on the battlefield. The same behavior, just expressed differently. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday, which the aliens later found ironic because Tuesday had no particular significance in human culture. Dr. Chen was running yet another simulation when the numbers finally aligned. She stared at her screen for a long moment, then began to cry. One of her assistants rushed over. Dr. Chen, what is wrong? Did the simulation fail again? No, she whispered. It worked, it finally worked. We can reach the stars. The next few weeks were chaos. The news spread across Earth like wildfire. Humans everywhere celebrated the discovery that would change their future forever. Old enemies set aside their differences to discuss the implications. For a brief moment, humanity was united in wonder. The Galactic Assembly watched all of this with growing concern. General Voxter increased his demands for immediate action. They will be in space within years, not decades as we expected. We must strike now. But Zixnar had been quietly working on his own plan. He had spent the past weeks reviewing every piece of data the Assembly had ever collected about humans. He had studied their art, their music, their literature. He had analyzed their religions, their philosophies, their dreams. "I have discovered something," he announced to the emergency session he had called. "Something that explains everything about humans." The other ambassadors leaned forward with interest. "Humans know they are mortal," Zixnar began. "They know their individual lives are short and fragile. Unlike the Korath, who live for centuries, or the Velith, who can transfer their consciousness to new bodies, humans get one brief existence and then they are gone forever." "This is weakness," General Voxter interrupted. "Short-lived species are inferior." "That is what we always believed," Zixnar agreed. "But we were wrong. Human mortality is not their weakness. It is their greatest strength." He activated another hologram. This one showed not battles or disasters, but ordinary human moments. A mother holding her newborn child. An old man planting a tree he would never see grow to full height. A teacher spending extra hours with a struggling student. A scientist sharing her discoveries freely instead of hoarding them for profit. "Because humans know they will die, they are constantly trying to leave something behind," Zixnar explained. "They invest in the future because they know they will not see it. They sacrifice for children who are not their own because those children will carry on after them. Every human alive today is the product of countless generations who gave their lives for descendants they would never meet." The chamber was silent as this sank in. "The soldier who dies to save his comrade is not being illogical," Zixnar continued. "He is being extremely logical by human standards. He knows that he himself will die eventually regardless. His only choice is whether his death will have meaning. By saving another, he ensures that something of himself continues." Ambassador Tizora nodded slowly. "The concept is similar to how my species views the collective. We sacrifice for the whole because the whole is more important than the individual." "Yes, but humans take it further," Zixnar said. "They do not require a collective consciousness to motivate them. They sacrifice willingly, individually, based on nothing but their own sense of connection to each other. They call it love or duty or honor, but it is all the same impulse. The recognition that they are part of something larger than themselves." General Voxter was unconvinced. "Pretty philosophy, but what does this have to do with our decision? They are still dangerous. They still make war. They still could threaten us." "Exactly," Zixnar said. "They could threaten us, or they could protect us." He changed the hologram one final time. Now it showed a simulation, a possible future. In this future, a threat emerged from the galactic core. Something ancient and terrible, awoken from millions of years of slumber. Something that no single species could hope to defeat. "Our long-range sensors have detected movement in the core region," Zixnar admitted. "We have kept this information classified, but the truth is that something is coming. Something that will require all of us working together to survive." The ambassadors shifted nervously. They had all heard rumors about the galactic core, ancient warnings from extinct civilizations, dark legends passed down through countless generations. "Humans evolved on a world full of predators and disasters," Zixnar continued. "They survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and plagues. They developed their sacrificial behavior because it was the only way to survive against threats greater than any individual. They are, quite simply, the best survivors the galaxy has ever produced." He let that statement hang in the air before continuing. "If we attack them, they will fight back. We have seen what that looks like. They will hurt us badly before we destroy them, if we even can destroy them. And then, when the threat from the core arrives, we will face it without their help. And if we ally with them, Ambassador Krelix asked, then we gain the most determined, most self-sacrificing warriors in the galaxy. Beings who will throw themselves into danger to protect those they care about. And if we treat them well, if we earn their loyalty, they will include us in that protection. General Voxter laughed bitterly. You want us to trust our survival to these violent primitives? I want us to survive, Zixnar replied simply. I have shown you the facts. Humans are coming to space whether we like it or not. The threat from the core is coming whether we are ready or not. Our choice is simple. We can make enemies of the only species in the galaxy that regularly sacrifices themselves for others, or we can make them our friends. The vote, when it finally came, was not unanimous, but it was decisive. The Galactic Assembly would reach out to humanity. They would offer alliance rather than conflict. They would bet their future on the strange, short-lived beings who died for each other. What none of them could have predicted was how much that decision would change everything. The first contact happened exactly 1 year after Dr. Chen's breakthrough. Humanity had spent that year building their first faster-than-light ship, a massive vessel they called the Pioneer. It carried 300 humans selected from nations all around the world, representing the best of what humanity had to offer. The Galactic Assembly had decided that Ambassador Zixnar should be the one to make contact. His studies had made him the foremost expert on human behavior, and the other species trusted him to handle the delicate situation. He was given a small diplomatic vessel and sent to intercept the Pioneer as it made its maiden voyage. Captain James Wright of the Pioneer was the first human to see an alien ship. He was sitting in his command chair, watching the stars streak by on the view screen, when his sensors detected something impossible. Another ship, matching their speed exactly, running parallel to their course. All hands to stations, he ordered calmly, though his heart was racing. We have contact with an unknown vessel. The Pioneer slowed and turned to face the alien ship. Captain Wright studied it carefully. The design was elegant, organic-looking, nothing like anything humans had ever built. It was clearly advanced, far beyond human technology. They are hailing us, his communications officer reported, audio and visual. Put it through, Captain Wright said. He took a deep breath and straightened his uniform. He was about to be the first human to speak with an intelligent alien species. The view screen flickered, and then Captain Wright was looking at Ambassador Zixnar. The Veloran was trying to appear friendly, but his 4 eyes and bluish skin were still startling. Many of the bridge crew gasped in surprise. Greetings, humans, Zixnar said. His voice came through a translator which gave it an odd, slightly mechanical quality. I am Ambassador Zixnar of the Veloran Collective. On behalf of the Galactic Assembly, I welcome you to the stars. Captain Wright recovered quickly. He had been trained for unexpected situations, and he was determined to make a good impression. I am Captain James Wright of the Earth vessel Pioneer. On behalf of humanity, we are honored to meet you. What followed was weeks of careful diplomacy. Zixnar and his team boarded the Pioneer with permission, and the two sides began learning about each other. The humans were fascinated by the alien technology and the news that the galaxy was full of intelligent life. Zixnar was fascinated by everything about the humans. He watched how they treated each other. The Pioneer was a small world unto itself, with its own community and social structures. Zixnar observed humans sharing their food with colleagues who had worked through meal times. He saw them covering shifts for friends who were tired or sick. He watched a young engineer spend hours helping an older scientist understand a new computer system, with no expectation of reward or recognition. You do this for each other constantly, Zixnar noted during one of his conversations with Captain Wright. You help each other even when there is no benefit to yourselves. Captain Wright looked confused by the observation. Of course we do. We are a crew. We look out for each other. But you have no biological connection to most of these people. They are not your family. They are now, Captain Wright said simply. We have been together for months, training and preparing. We eat together, work together, laugh together. They are my family, blood or not. Zixnar was beginning to understand something important. Human sacrifice was not just about dying for others. It was about living for others too. Every small act of kindness, every moment of generosity was part of the same pattern. Humans constantly invested in each other, building bonds that transcended biology. The real test came 3 weeks into their first contact mission. The Pioneer was traveling with Zixnar's vessel through an asteroid field when their sensors detected something wrong. A chunk of rock, previously hidden behind a larger asteroid, was on a collision course with Zixnar's ship. Impact in 40 seconds, the Pioneer's officer announced. There was no time for Zixnar's vessel to evade. Their ship was smaller and less maneuverable. The asteroid would strike them directly. Captain Wright did not hesitate. Helm, put us between the asteroid and the ambassador's ship. Full power to forward shields. Sir, our shields may not hold against an impact that size, his officer warned. I know, do it anyway. The Pioneer swung into position, placing itself between the asteroid and Zixnar's vessel. The bridge crew braced for impact. Some of them closed their eyes. Others reached out to hold hands with the person next to them. The asteroid struck the Pioneer's shields. The entire ship shuddered. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks. The lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency red lighting. But the shields held barely, and the asteroid broke apart against them. When the dust cleared and systems came back online, Captain Wright immediately hailed the ambassador's ship. Ambassador Zixnar, are you all right? Did you take any damage? Zixnar's voice came back, filled with emotion that the translator could not quite convey. We are unharmed, Captain. You shielded us. You risked your ship, your crew, your own life to protect us. You are guests under our protection, Captain Wright replied. We could not let you be harmed. There was a long pause before Zixnar spoke again. Captain Wright, I have been studying your species for 100 years. I have seen recordings of your battles and disasters. I have analyzed your behavior and written reports for the Galactic Assembly, but I never truly understood what I was seeing until this moment. Ambassador, you did not calculate the odds of your survival. You did not weigh the value of your lives against ours. You simply acted to protect us because protecting others is what humans do. It is not a decision for you. It is an instinct. Captain Wright was not sure how to respond to that. We just did what anyone would do. No, Zixnar said firmly. That is exactly my point. No other species would do what you just did. The Korath would have saved themselves and left us to die. The Mantari would have calculated that our ship was expendable. Even my own people, the Velorans, would have prioritized our own survival. Only humans throw themselves into danger for strangers. The aftermath of the asteroid incident changed everything. Zixnar returned to the Galactic Assembly with a personal testimony that no recording could match. He stood before the Council and told them what it felt like to be protected by humans. They did not know us, he said. They had only met us weeks before, and yet they risked everything to save us. This is not just a survival strategy. This is who they are at their core. They cannot help but protect those around them. Even General Voxter was impressed, though he tried not to show it. And you believe this makes them valuable allies. I believe this makes them the most valuable allies we could ever hope to find, Zixnar replied. If we can earn their loyalty, if we can become part of their extended family, they will protect us with the same dedication they show each other. The treaty negotiations that followed were surprisingly smooth. Humanity was eager to join the galactic community, and the Galactic Assembly was now genuinely willing to welcome them. There were still difficulties, of course. Some species remained suspicious of humans. Some humans remained suspicious of aliens. But the foundation had been laid for something unprecedented. The first joint project was a space station, built at the midpoint between Earth and the nearest assembly world. Humans and aliens would work side by side, learning from each other, building trust through shared effort. It was called Station Hope, and it became a symbol of what the future might hold. Dr. Sarah Chen was among the first human scientists assigned to Station Hope. She had never stopped working on improving faster-than-light travel, and now she had access to alien knowledge that could help her achieve things previously thought impossible. But she also had something else: new friends. Her research partner was a Velith named T. Sorakel, a distant relative of the ambassador. The Velith was brilliant and kind, but also deeply cautious. T. Sorakel had grown up hearing stories about human violence and unpredictability. It took time for her to trust Dr. Chen. The breakthrough in their friendship came during a laboratory accident. An experiment went wrong, releasing a cloud of toxic gas. T. Sorakel was closer to the accident and was overcome before she could reach the emergency breathing equipment. Dr. Chen did not run for the exit. She ran toward her colleague, grabbed the unconscious Velith, and dragged her to safety. Then she went back for the other scientists who were still trapped in the contaminated area. By the time rescue teams arrived, Dr. Chen had saved 7 lives. She herself was hospitalized for weeks, her lungs damaged by the toxic exposure. T. Sorakel visited her every day during her recovery. "You could have died," the Velith said. "You should have died by any rational calculation." "You needed help," Dr. Chen replied weakly. "I was not going to leave you. We have only known each other for 3 months." Dr. Chen smiled despite the pain of her injuries. 3 months is a long time, long enough to become friends. From that day forward, T. Sorakel was one of humanity's greatest advocates in the Galactic Assembly. She told everyone who would listen about what Dr. Chen had done. She explained, as Zixnar had explained, that human sacrifice was not madness or foolishness. It was love expressed through action. The Interstellar Alliance was formally established 5 years after first contact. All 12 species of the Galactic Assembly signed the founding documents, with humanity as the newest member. The ceremony was held on Station Hope, which had grown from a small outpost to a thriving city in space. Captain Wright, now Admiral Wright, gave the speech that many historians would later call the defining moment of the new alliance. He stood before representatives of a dozen species and spoke simply and honestly about what humanity hoped to bring to the galaxy. "We know that we are newcomers here," he said. "We know that our history is full of violence and mistakes. We have made war on each other for thousands of years. We have done terrible things in the name of fear and greed and hatred." The alien ambassadors shifted uncomfortably. They had seen the recordings of human wars. They knew the violence that humans were capable of. "But we have also done something else," Admiral Wright continued. "We have loved each other. We have sacrificed for each other. We have built civilizations and created art and reached for the stars because we believed that the future was worth fighting for." He paused and looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each species in turn. "We offer you that same dedication. We offer you our loyalty, our protection, our willingness to stand with you against any threat. We cannot promise to be perfect. We cannot promise to never make mistakes, but we can promise that we will never abandon those we call friends." In the audience, Ambassador Zixnar felt something he had never felt before. It was, he realized later, what humans called hope. Real hope, the kind that made you believe that the future could be better than the past. The kind that made you willing to sacrifice for tomorrow. The Interstellar Alliance had been born. 10 years passed after the founding of the Interstellar Alliance, and the galaxy began to change in ways no one had predicted. Humanity brought more than just their willingness to sacrifice. They brought their creativity, their adaptability, their stubborn refusal to accept that any problem was truly unsolvable. The first major crisis came from an unexpected direction. The Korath Dominion, despite their reputation as warriors, had a serious problem. A plague was spreading through their population, and their own scientists could not find a cure. The disease targeted something in Korath biology that no other species shared. No one else could get sick, which meant no one else had any reason to help. General Voxter, now much older and much wiser than he had been during the first contact debates, swallowed his pride and asked the Alliance for help. He expected polite refusals, or perhaps offers of aid that came with political strings attached. What he got instead was something he never could have imagined. 3,000 human doctors and scientists volunteered to go to the Korath homeworld. They left their families, their comfortable lives, their own safety behind. They went to help a species that had once wanted to destroy them. Dr. Marcus Webb was one of those volunteers. He was 52 years old, a specialist in alien biology who had devoted his career to understanding how different species worked. He arrived on the Korath homeworld knowing that he might not survive the experience. The Korath did not handle sickness well. They were a warrior culture, and weakness was considered shameful. Sick Korath often became violent, lashing out at caregivers in their delirium. Several human doctors were injured in the first few weeks. But the humans kept coming. When one doctor was hurt, another took their place. They worked in shifts around the clock, analyzing blood samples and testing treatments and caring for patients who sometimes tried to kill them. Dr. Webb's breakthrough came after 4 months of tireless effort. He discovered that the plague was actually a mutation of a common Korath virus, altered by radiation from a nearby star that had recently gone through a change in its cycle. The cure was relatively simple once he understood the cause. The Korath government wanted to reward Dr. Webb with riches and honors. He refused them all. Instead, he asked for one thing: permission to establish a permanent human medical station on the Korath homeworld. "Your people need help," he explained to General Voxter. "Not just for this plague, but for the future. Your culture discourages asking for aid when you are sick. That needs to change, and it will change faster if we are here to show you that accepting help is not weakness." Voxter stared at the human for a long moment. Dr. Webb was not tall or strong by any standard. He was balding, slightly overweight, and his hands shook slightly from the medications he took for a heart condition. And yet this fragile creature had saved millions of Korath lives. "Why did you come here?" Voxter asked. "You knew the risks. You knew that some of your people would die. Why did you volunteer?" Dr. Webb considered the question carefully before answering. "Because you needed help. That is all. You needed help and we could give it. But we are not your people. We are Korath." "You are part of the Alliance now," Dr. Webb said simply. "That makes you our people." From that day forward, the Korath Dominion was one of humanity's strongest supporters in the Alliance. Voxter personally advocated for greater human involvement in galactic affairs. He told everyone who would listen about the human doctors who had risked their lives for strangers of another species. But the plague crisis was only the beginning. The warnings that Zixnar had given during the first contact debates proved to be terrifyingly accurate. Something was indeed coming from the galactic core, something ancient and terrible. The first signs were subtle. Ships began disappearing in the outer regions near the core. Communications would cut off mid-transmission, replaced by static and then silence. Scouting vessels sent to investigate never returned. The Alliance dispatched a scientific expedition to learn what was happening. The expedition included representatives from all 13 member species, including humans. They traveled deeper into the core region than any Alliance ship had ever gone before. What they found changed everything. The creatures they encountered had no name, so the Alliance eventually called them the Hollow. They were not alive in any conventional sense. They were machines, ancient beyond imagining, built by a species that had died out millions of years ago. Their purpose was simple and terrible: to consume all organic life they encountered. The Hollow had been dormant for eons, waiting in the cold darkness of space near the galactic core, but the increased activity of Alliance ships had awakened them. They were coming, and their numbers were beyond counting. The scientific expedition barely escaped. Their ship limped back to Alliance space, damaged and with half its crew dead. But they brought crucial information. The Hollow were powerful but not invincible. They could be destroyed by conventional weapons if you had enough firepower and were willing to pay the price. The Alliance Council met in emergency session. The debate was fierce and fearful. Some species wanted to flee, to abandon the core regions and hide in the outer reaches of the galaxy. Others wanted to negotiate somehow, though the Hollow showed no signs of being capable of communication. It was Admiral Wright, now old and gray but still commanding, who proposed the solution that would define humanity's legacy in the galaxy. "We stand and fight," he said. "All of us together. We combine our fleets, our technologies, our resources. We meet the Hollow and we stop them." "The losses would be catastrophic," Ambassador Krelax protested. "We would lose millions of lives." "We will lose billions if we run," Admiral Wright replied. "The Hollow are not going to stop. They are not going to get tired or give up. They will consume everything in their path until nothing is left. Our only hope is to destroy them before they destroy us." "And humanity will lead this fight?" General Voxter asked. "Humanity will be part of this fight," Admiral Wright corrected. "We will not ask any species to sacrifice more than we are willing to sacrifice ourselves. But yes, we will lead if that is what it takes." The vote was unanimous. The Alliance would fight, and humanity would be at the front lines. The preparations took 3 years. 3 years of building weapons, training soldiers, and trying to prepare for a war unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. Human engineers worked alongside Korath weapons specialists. Velith scientists collaborated with Veloran researchers. Species that had been strangers or even enemies learned to work together because they had no other choice. Dr. Sarah Chen, now much older but still brilliant, led the team that developed the weapon that would eventually turn the tide. She called it the Cascade Bomb, a device that could trigger a chain reaction in the Hollow's mechanical systems, causing them to destroy themselves. It was dangerous to build, dangerous to transport, and dangerous to use. The person who delivered it would almost certainly not survive. She presented her invention to the Alliance Council with tears in her eyes. "I have spent my life trying to help humanity reach the stars," she said. "Now I have built something that could save the stars themselves, but the cost will be terrible." Everyone knew what she meant. Someone would have to fly a ship into the heart of the Hollow fleet and detonate the Cascade Bomb. It was a suicide mission, plain and simple. 3,000 humans volunteered. So did warriors from every other species in the Alliance. The Korath, who had once dismissed humans as weak and emotional, now competed fiercely for the honor of dying alongside them. In the end, the mission was given to a joint crew of 30, representing all 13 Alliance species. Captain Maria Santos, a human pilot known for her incredible skill, would command the ship. Her co-pilot was a young Korath named Vexter, the grandson of General Voxter himself. Before they left on their final mission, there was a ceremony. Representatives from every world in the Alliance gathered to honor those who would not return. Admiral Wright, now using a hover chair because his legs had finally given out, gave the final speech. "You carry our hope with you," he said to the 30 volunteers. "Not just human hope, but the hope of every living being in this galaxy. What you are about to do will be remembered for as long as there are beings capable of remembering. You are heroes, all of you, and we are proud beyond measure." Captain Santos smiled, though her eyes were wet. "We are just doing what anyone would do, Admiral, protecting those we love." The volunteer ship, named the Final Gift, launched the next morning. The Alliance fleet followed at a distance, ready to press the attack once the Cascade bomb did its work. Everyone watched on viewscreens across 1,000 worlds as the tiny ship flew toward the massive Hollow Armada. The battle that followed was terrible and glorious. The Hollow tried to stop the Final Gift, throwing wave after wave of their mechanical soldiers at it. The Alliance fleet engaged, drawing enemy fire, buying time. Ships exploded and crews died, but they kept fighting. Captain Santos piloted the Final Gift through the chaos with impossible skill. Vexter called out targeting solutions, while the rest of the crew kept the ship's systems running despite constant damage. They were hit again and again, but they kept moving. Finally, they reached the heart of the Hollow fleet. The Cascade bomb was armed and ready. Captain Santos opened a channel to the Alliance fleet. "This is Captain Santos of the Final Gift. We are in position. The bomb is armed. It has been an honor serving with all of you." Vexter added his own message in the Korath language, a traditional warrior's farewell that brought tears to General Voxter's eyes as he watched from the Alliance flagship. The Cascade bomb detonated. The effect was exactly what Dr. Chen had predicted. The chain reaction spread through the Hollow fleet like wildfire, causing machine after machine to tear itself apart. Within minutes, the armada that had threatened to consume the galaxy was reduced to floating debris. The Final Gift was gone. All 30 crew members had given their lives. The Alliance had won. The aftermath of the Hollow War, as it came to be known, transformed the galaxy forever. The Alliance emerged stronger than ever, bound together by the shared sacrifice of their final battle. Every species had lost people they loved. Every species had heroes to mourn and celebrate. But humanity's role in the victory gave them a special place in galactic history. They had not just fought alongside the other species. They had led. They had inspired. They had shown the galaxy what was possible when beings chose to stand together instead of apart. The 30 crew members of the Final Gift were honored with monuments on every Alliance world. Their names were inscribed in a memorial at the heart of Station Hope, which had survived the war and now served as the capital of the Interstellar Alliance. Dr. Sarah Chen did not live to see the memorial completed. She passed away peacefully 6 months after the battle, surrounded by friends from a dozen different species. Her last words were simple and characteristic. "I am glad I got to see us reach the stars. I am glad we did it together." T. Sorakel, her old research partner, delivered the eulogy at her memorial service. "Sarah taught me that sacrifice is not about dying," the Velith said. "It is about living for something larger than yourself." Every day she gave her time, her energy, her brilliance to making the galaxy a better place. The Final Gift was just the last and greatest expression of a lifetime of giving. General Voxter, now ancient by Korath standards, made a pilgrimage to Earth in the years after the war. He wanted to see the world that had produced such remarkable beings. He walked the streets of human cities, visited human schools and hospitals, observed human families going about their daily lives. "I understand now," he told his hosts. "I understand why you fight so hard. You see yourselves in each other. Every stranger is a potential friend, a potential family member. When one human suffers, all humans suffer with them. This is why you sacrifice so freely. You are not giving up your lives for others. You are giving up your lives for yourselves, for the part of yourself that lives in everyone you love." The humans he spoke with did not entirely understand what he meant. To them, their behavior was simply normal. They could not imagine any other way to live. But Voxter understood, and he spent his remaining years teaching other Korath what he had learned. The warrior culture of the Korath began to change, slowly but surely. They still valued strength and courage, but now they also valued compassion and sacrifice. The human way of thinking began to spread through their society like a beneficial infection. The same thing was happening across the Alliance. Human ideas about community and mutual support were transforming cultures that had existed for thousands of years. The Velith, who had always sacrificed for the collective, began to value individual choice and friendship in new ways. The Mantari, who had always calculated outcomes with cold logic, began to factor in emotional needs and personal connections. It was not always smooth. Cultural change never is. There were conflicts and misunderstandings. Some species resented what they saw as human cultural imperialism. Others clung to their traditional ways and rejected the new influences. But the overall trajectory was clear. The galaxy was becoming more connected, more compassionate, more willing to sacrifice for the common good. And humanity was at the heart of this transformation. Ambassador Zixnar, who had championed human contact from the very beginning, lived to see his hopes realized. On his 200th birthday, a remarkable age even for a long-lived Veloran, he gave a speech to the Alliance Council that was broadcast to every world in the galaxy. 150 years ago, I showed this council recordings of human sacrifice in war. I argued that these strange beings might become our greatest allies. Some of you thought I was mad. Some of you thought I was naive. Some of you thought I was leading us to our destruction. He paused, his 4 eyes blinking slowly as he remembered those difficult early days. I was not certain I was right. No one can predict the future with certainty. But I believed that any species capable of such profound sacrifice must also be capable of profound love. And I believed that such love, properly channeled, could heal the galaxy of its ancient divisions. He looked around the chamber, now filled with representatives of not 13 but 23 species. The Alliance had grown steadily since its founding, as more and more worlds chose to join rather than stand alone. I was right about humans, Zixnar continued. But I was wrong about one thing. I thought they would teach us how to sacrifice. Instead, they taught us something even more important. They taught us how to hope. In the audience, a human diplomat named James Chen sat listening with tears in his eyes. He was the great-grandson of Sarah Chen, and he carried her legacy in his DNA and his spirit. Next to him sat his closest friend, a young Korath named Vexter Kai, descendant of the hero who had died on the final gift. After the speech, Zixnar sought out the 2 young beings. He was very old now and his movements were slow, but his mind was still sharp. "You two remind me of the early days," he said. "Human and Korath, once enemies, now friends. Your ancestors would be proud." James Chen nodded respectfully. "Ambassador, may I ask you a question that has always bothered me?" "Of course." "You said that you showed the council recordings of human sacrifice 150 years ago. That was before first contact. How did you know about us? How long were you watching?" Zixnar's equivalent of a smile crossed his alien features. "We had been observing your world for a very long time, young human. Long before you developed the technology to reach the stars. We watched you grow from a primitive species into a technological civilization. We saw your wars and your disasters. We saw everything. And you still chose to ally with us, even knowing how violent we could be." "Because of how violent you could be," Zixnar corrected gently. "We had seen many species throughout the galaxy. We had seen predators and prey, conquerors and builders, destroyers and creators. But we had never seen a species that could be so violent and so compassionate at the same time. You were willing to kill and die for each other with equal intensity. That combination, that was unique." Vexter Kai leaned forward with interest. "My grandfather told me similar things before he died. He said that humans were terrifying because they had no limits. They would sacrifice anything to protect those they loved." "Your grandfather was a wise warrior," Zixnar agreed. "He understood humans better than most, and in the end he loved them as his own people. That is the true power of humanity. Not their weapons or their technology, but their ability to make others love them. The old ambassador excused himself shortly after, leaving the two young beings to think about what he had said. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, looking out at the stars through the station's massive windows. "Do you think they were right?" Vexterkai asked eventually, "about humans being special?" James Chen considered the question carefully. "I think every species is special in their own way. We just happen to be special in a way that was useful when the Hollow came. If the threat had been different, maybe another species would have been the key to victory." "That is a very human answer," Vexterkai said with a grunt of amusement. "Modest, diplomatic, refusing to take credit. Is that bad?" "No, it is exactly what makes you special." The Korath turned to face his human friend directly. "My people once wanted to destroy yours. Now we would die to protect you. That transformation, that is not nothing. You did that to us. Your people changed my people." James nodded slowly. "And your people changed us too. We were so alone before first contact. We thought we were the only intelligent life in the universe. Now we have friends everywhere we look. The galaxy feels like home." They sat together as the stars turned slowly outside the window. Two young beings from species that had once been so different, now bound together by decades of shared history and sacrifice. The interstellar alliance continued to grow and change in the centuries that followed. New species were discovered and welcomed. Old conflicts were resolved. The galaxy that had once been divided by fear and suspicion became united by something that humans had given it a name for: hope. And at the heart of it all, humans kept doing what they had always done. They sacrificed for each other and for their friends. They built communities that transcended biology and culture. They loved fiercely and protected fiercely and never, ever gave up on those they cared about. Historians from future ages would debate exactly what made humanity so effective at building alliances and inspiring loyalty. Some argued it was their short lifespans, which gave them an urgency that longer-lived species lacked. Others pointed to their evolutionary history on a dangerous world that required cooperation for survival. Still others suggested that it was simply random chance, a quirk of development that could have happened to any species. But the humans themselves knew the truth. It was not complicated or mysterious. They just did what anyone would do. They saw beings who needed help and they helped. They saw friends in danger and they protected them. They saw a galaxy full of strangers and they decided to make them family. That was the lesson of humanity. That was the gift they gave to the stars. Not their technology or their weapons or their creativity, but their stubborn, irrational, beautiful belief that strangers could become friends, and friends could become family, and family was worth dying for. The Interstellar Alliance was formed because aliens saw human sacrifice in war. But it endured because aliens learned to see each other the way humans saw everyone, as people worth saving, worth protecting, worth loving. And that made all the difference.